I never imagined that one careless moment could unravel everything I had carefully hidden for years. It started as a whisper inside me, something I barely understood myself. Ever since I was a teenager, I had loved the freedom of wearing clothes society deemed wrong for me, dresses, soft fabrics, colors that made me feel like myself. But in the outside world, I had a life, a name, and a reputation I worked hard to protect. I wasn't supposed to feel that way, or at least, that's what I told myself. I kept it secret. Every week, in the quiet of my apartment, I transformed. I would step into outfits I'd saved for months, take care with makeup I had taught myself, and for a few hours, I could breathe in a way I never could as me. It wasn't about sex or attention, it was about comfort, identity, and something deeper I couldn't explain. I felt like two people sharing one body, the one the world expected, and the one that quietly thrived behind closed doors. And then it happened. It was a Thursday evening. I had just come back from work, drained and tense, and I decided to indulge in a small escape. I put on a soft lavender dress, one I had chosen for its simplicity but elegance. I brushed my hair until it fell perfectly over my shoulders and slipped into a pair of simple flats. I was ready to disappear into my private world, to become someone I could finally love without judgment. I didn't notice my phone buzzing repeatedly on the counter. Then, a faint click from the living room made my heart stop. I froze. The door hadn't been locked properly, and the next thing I knew, my roommate was standing there. Or rather, my roommate's wide eyes were staring at me, frozen in shock. Wow, he finally whispered, voice tight. I didn't mean to. I just came by to drop some paperwork. I felt my chest tighten. My mind raced, trying to find an explanation that wouldn't shatter the fragile control I had over my life. It's not what it looks like, I stammered, though even to my own ears, it sounded weak. He didn't move. He didn't speak. I could feel the seconds stretching into eternities. And then, the first crack in the tension, he smiled, awkwardly but genuinely. Hey, it's okay, he said slowly. You don't have to hide from me. I blinked, unsure if relief or fear would hit first. You're not mad? I asked, my voice trembling. No, he said. Honestly, I think it's brave. Brave. That word hung in the air, heavier than any accusation, lighter than any judgment. It was the first time I felt that maybe I wasn't completely alone, that maybe my secret wasn't a prison but a part of me that could be seen without shame. Still, the exposure wasn't over. A week later, my family found out not through some gentle confession, but because I left my laptop open while searching for makeup tutorials. The photos were there, carefully stored, moments of transformation that I thought were private. My sister gasped, my mother froze, and my father's face was unreadable. I thought it was over. I thought my world would collapse into ridicule and disappointment. But instead, something unexpected happened. My mother sat me down first, in the quiet kitchen where the sun spilled across the tiles. She didn't yell, she didn't accuse. She just held my hand and said, I wish you had told me sooner. I just want you to be safe and happy. My father followed, later that evening. His first words were hesitant, awkward. I don't really understand it. But I see you're still you. And I love you. That hasn't changed. I broke down then, in ways I hadn't since I was a teenager. The tears were hot and heavy, but they were also cleansing. For years, I had feared judgment, rejection, and loneliness. And yet, here I was, surrounded by people who, even in confusion, were willing to try to understand. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. There were hard conversations, awkward silences, and moments when I questioned whether I had made a mistake in trusting anyone. But there were also moments of profound love. My sister helped me pick outfits for family events, laughing with me as I tried styles I had never dared wear before. My parents learned the names I wanted to be called in these moments of transformation. They asked questions, they listened, and slowly, the fear and shame I had carried for so long began to melt. Even at work, things shifted. I was terrified that the gossip would spread, that colleagues would mock me or see me differently. But when I finally decided to tell one close coworker, I was met with nothing but curiosity and support. I admire your courage, she said. It takes real strength to live your truth. And in those words, I realized something. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's living fully, even when fear is there. It's choosing honesty over secrecy, self-acceptance over hiding. It hasn't been easy. There are still days when I feel the old doubts creeping in, when the world feels too heavy, when the reflection in the mirror doesn't match the person I want to be. But those moments are fleeting, because they are balanced by laughter, love, and the quiet joy of existing authentically. Sometimes, I sit in my lavender dresses, my soft sweaters, or my tailored jackets, whatever feels right that day, and I just breathe. The world outside may still be unpredictable, but inside, I have found peace. I have found myself. And the moral is simple but profound: we all have truths we fear to reveal. And yet, when we let ourselves be seen even in the smallest ways, we open the door to connection, to understanding, and to love that we could never have imagined. Life isn't about hiding the parts of us that feel different, it's about embracing them, trusting that the people who matter will see us for who we really are. So yes, I was exposed. My double life came into the light, and at first, I was terrified. But exposure isn't always destruction. Sometimes, it's liberation. Sometimes, it's the beginning of living fully, bravely, and beautifully as yourself. And that, more than anything, is worth every moment of fear. Because in the end, the dresses, the makeup, the clothes, they were never the real me. They were just the first step toward finally becoming the person I had always been, inside. And now, there's nothing I wouldn't give to be able to tell anyone hiding who they truly are. It's scary, it's messy, but it's also worth it. You're allowed to be seen. You're allowed to be loved. And most importantly, you're allowed to be you. Even after my family accepted me, life didn't suddenly become easy. There were moments that shook me to my core, small reminders that the world outside my apartment didn't always understand, moments when I questioned whether I could truly be myself in public. One evening, I had to attend a work dinner. I spent hours getting ready, carefully balancing the version of me I wanted to show with the professionalism my job demanded. I chose a simple, elegant blouse and skirt, something that felt like me but wouldn't scream for attention. Still, as I stepped into the elevator, my hands trembled. The car doors closed, and my reflection stared back at me. I looked different. Not just in appearance, but in how I carried myself. My shoulders lifted, my chin steadied, my heartbeat slowed slightly. The anxiety didn't vanish, it never truly does, but I felt a flicker of pride. I had survived the exposure. Now, I was learning to thrive in the light. At the dinner, I could feel the subtle stares. A colleague leaned closer, whispering, "You look amazing tonight." That small affirmation, so simple, almost made me cry. The night passed in a blur of polite conversation and careful navigation of questions I wasn't ready to answer fully. But for the first time, I realized I could exist in this space, not hiding, not pretending, just existing, fully myself. Later, on the walk home, I felt a gust of wind against my face, and I laughed an honest, unguarded laugh. It was a small victory, but one that felt monumental. Each step outside was a step toward freedom, each choice to be seen was a rebellion against years of fear and shame. Then came the unexpected. A neighbor, someone I barely knew, confronted me in the stairwell. "Hey, I hope this isn't weird, but I saw you the other day. I just wanted to say, you seem happy. Really happy. And it's inspiring." I froze. My instinct was to retreat, to hide, to pretend I hadn't heard. But something in his voice, something unassuming and sincere, made me pause. "Thank you," I said quietly, unsure if I even believed it yet. I'm trying." He smiled, nodded, and went on his way. I stayed in that stairwell a little longer, thinking. Trying. That word echoed in my mind. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about being fully accepted by the world or having every moment be easy. It was about daring to try, daring to live authentically, even when fear whispered that I should stay hidden. Back in my apartment, I looked in the mirror again. The reflection was the same, but I was not. I had begun to see the person I could become, someone strong enough to face judgment, brave enough to show vulnerability, and resilient enough to survive mistakes. And then, the final test came, not in confrontation, not in fear but in love. A close friend, someone I trusted more than anyone, sat across from me one evening. I had rehearsed the moment countless times, trying to find the words. "I need to tell you something about me," I began. They listened. Really listened. No interruption, no judgment, just attention. When I finished, there was silence, a terrifying, heavy silence, but it wasn't condemnation. Finally, they reached across the table and held my hand. "I'm glad you told me. I want to know the real you. All of you." The relief hit me like waves. I laughed through tears, a trembling, joyous laugh that felt like an exhale I had been holding in for decades. It wasn't the dresses, the makeup, or the outfits that mattered. It was the courage to be seen, to be vulnerable, to trust that love could survive truth. And that's the lesson I want to leave anyone listening. The world will not always understand. People may be confused, curious, or even afraid. But the only betrayal is hiding from yourself. Your identity is not a burden, and it is not a shame, it is a gift. Sharing it may be terrifying, but it is also transformative. Every step into authenticity, no matter how small, is a step toward freedom, toward love, and toward the life you were meant to live. I still have my quiet evenings, my private moments of transformation, but now they are not secret in shame, they are moments of celebration. Each outfit, each brushstroke of makeup, each small choice to present as myself is no longer a hidden act. It is a declaration: I am here. I am me. And I deserve to be seen. Even after exposure, after fear, after uncertainty, I am no longer living a double life. I am living my life, fully, courageously, and with a heart unafraid. And if my story reaches even one person who feels trapped in fear or shame, I hope they know this: you are not alone. You are valid. You are seen. And you are capable of the kind of bravery that changes lives, including your own. Because at the end of it all, the dresses and the transformation weren't what made me whole. It was the courage to reveal myself, to embrace myself, and to trust that love, real, human, unconditional love, would follow. And in that trust, I finally found peace. Even with my family and close friends accepting me, there were still moments that felt like stepping onto a tightrope over a canyon. One wrong move, one glance, one whisper, and I could fall back into fear. It was subtle at first: a colleague staring a moment too long, a neighbor pausing near my apartment door, even the reflections in shop windows catching me off guard. I remember one afternoon, walking down a crowded street, wearing a flowing pastel skirt and a soft cardigan. The air smelled faintly of rain and concrete, a mix that always made me feel alive. I felt the weight of eyes on me, felt the judgments I imagined even though most people weren't looking at all. My heart thumped as if it were warning me: be careful. Someone might see. Someone might judge. But then, something shifted. A little girl walking with her mother looked at me and smiled, eyes wide and curious. She tugged her mother's hand and whispered something I couldn't hear. And in that instant, I realized the fear I carried wasn't entirely theirs, it was mine. My fear of judgment, my fear of rejection, my fear of being too much or wrong. It was the first time I truly noticed the freedom I had gained. I was walking visibly, openly, in public, and yet the world didn't crumble. No one shouted, no one laughed, no one made me disappear. I exhaled, letting the tension leave my shoulders, and allowed myself to smile back at the little girl. She giggled, and I felt a flicker of joy that went beyond relief. It was pure, human, unadulterated joy. But life isn't always gentle. One evening, I received a message from a coworker I had never been particularly close to. They had seen some photos online, old photos I had forgotten about, and wanted to meet. My stomach dropped. Was it curiosity? Gossip? Malice? I didn't know. But the idea of being confronted, publicly or privately, terrified me. I met them at a small cafe downtown. My hands were clammy, my legs restless, but I sat upright, determined to face this. "I saw your photos," they began, voice careful, almost nervous. I wanted to know, is this real? I took a deep breath. Yes. It's me. It's who I am. They nodded slowly, searching my face as if trying to understand something complex, something beyond labels. I think that's brave. Honestly, it's inspiring. I wish I had your courage. I blinked, surprised by the lack of judgment. For so long, I had prepared myself for confrontation, ridicule, rejection. But here was someone seeing me as human, flawed and beautiful, and accepting me anyway. I realized then that the fear of exposure was always worse than exposure itself. The next weeks became a rhythm of small victories. I joined a local community art class, where I could express myself through colors, textures, and movement. There, no one judged me, no one expected me to conform. I watched others create, struggle, and laugh, and I realized my story was part of a much larger human experience. We all have identities we are afraid to show, we all have parts of ourselves we hide. One day, the instructor asked me to present my work. My hands shook as I set my painting on the easel, a figure, abstract but unmistakably me, draped in flowing fabrics of soft blues and purples, a face half hidden yet full of light. I took a breath and explained my process. This is me, I said quietly, learning to be seen, learning to trust that who I am is enough. There was silence for a moment, then applause. Not pity, not fascination, not amusement, applause. Genuine, human, understanding applause. And in that sound, I felt a piece of my soul lift. That night, walking home, I realized how far I had come. From secret hours spent alone, to exposure, to acceptance, to small, courageous steps into the world I was no longer hiding. I was living. And the hardest, most terrifying part, the part one feared the most, had become the most liberating, being myself. Sometimes, I still pause in front of mirrors, still feel the old pangs of fear. But those moments are tempered by gratitude and love for my family, my friends, and most importantly, for myself. I dress, I laugh, I make mistakes, I feel awkward, but I do it openly, honestly, and unapologetically. I know that life won't always be perfect. There will always be challenges, misunderstandings, and fear. But the courage to face them, to step into the light even when it's uncomfortable, to embrace your identity fully, that is where freedom lies. So, if you've ever hidden a part of yourself, if you've ever feared being seen for who you really are, I want you to know this: exposure is not the end. It is the beginning of living with authenticity, of finding people who will see you and love you anyway, and of discovering the incredible strength inside you that you didn't know existed. I was exposed. I feared it. I survived it. And in surviving, I found life, real life, messy, beautiful, and entirely mine. And now, when I step into my dresses, my sweaters, or even just a comfortable pair of shoes, I do it with pride, with confidence, and with a heart wide open. Because the truth is, the person I was hiding is the person I needed to become. And finally, I am free. Months had passed since the first exposure, and I had grown in ways I never imagined. I wasn't just surviving, I was learning to live fully, openly, and courageously. But life, as it always does, decided to test me one last time. It was a community event, an art exhibition featuring works from local creators. I had submitted a piece, a self-portrait in soft, flowing fabrics, eyes bright and unafraid. I had rehearsed what I would say if anyone asked about it. My palms were sweaty, my heart racing as I walked into the gallery. Every step felt heavy with anticipation. Then I saw him. The neighbor who had smiled at me months ago. He was standing near my painting, talking to a small crowd, his face lighting up as he explained my work to others. And suddenly, a wave of fear hit me. What if they all saw me? What if I froze? What if someone judged me again? I took a deep breath, remembering all I had learned, the courage, the love, the small victories. And then I walked toward them, each step a declaration: I am here. I am me. When I reached my painting, the crowd parted slightly. Someone whispered, "This is the artist." I nodded, voice trembling but clear. Yes. It's me. And then something incredible happened. Instead of judgment or confusion, there was awe. People smiled. One by one, they came closer, asking questions about my process, my inspiration, my choices. And I answered honestly, vulnerably, openly. I spoke about the fear of being exposed, the relief of being accepted, the joy of finally living authentically. By the time I stepped back, I felt a shift inside me. I realized I was no longer defined by the fear of what others might think. I was defined by the courage it took to show up, the love I had allowed myself to accept, and the freedom I had fought to embrace. Later, outside the gallery, the neighbor caught up with me. "I just want you to know," he said softly, "what you did today, it's brave. You're inspiring more people than you know." I smiled, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I never thought living honestly could feel like this, like freedom. He nodded. "It does. And you deserve it." Walking home, I passed my reflection in the shop windows, and this time, I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I smiled at the person looking back at me, a person who had once lived in secret, who had feared judgment, and who now shone with quiet strength. I realized that being exposed, that terrifying first moment, had been a gift in disguise. It forced me to confront my fears, to seek acceptance not just from others but from myself. It taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to live authentically despite it. And now, my life was no longer double. It was whole. Every outfit, every brushstroke of makeup, every choice to be myself wasn't a secret act, it was a celebration of identity, of bravery, of love. If you've ever hidden who you truly are, I want you to hear this. Exposure is not the end. It can be terrifying, yes, but it can also be liberation. It can open doors to understanding, connection, and acceptance that you never thought possible. The world may not always understand, but the people who matter will. And the most important person to accept you is you. I was afraid. I was exposed. I was vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, I discovered strength, love, and freedom. I am no longer living in secret. I am living fully, honestly, and unapologetically. I am me. And finally, for the first time in my life, I am free.